Okay, so what have I learned from my experience teaching in a pandemic? Um, my experience might be different than other people's experience, and I think that's key when looking at how we've all come through this pandemic and what it looked like for each of us is to remember that our experience isn't everyone's experience, and to always come at it with an open heart and open ears to hear what others have gleaned from the experience. So I lost my dad to COVID last year in January. My mom's still dealing with long haul COVID. I lost some family friends as well. So my experience comes from a place of loss and frustration. And teaching during the pandemic was actually something that grew me as a teacher. But my experiences personally grew me as an individual. So I did not like how ill-prepared I felt at the beginning of the pandemic. That's why I enrolled in grad school. That's why I quickly tried to catch myself up on technology. I had worked at a small school district that did not stress technology, to say the least, and I knew I was behind. I would do workshops, but always felt like, well, what's the point of implementing or trying to implement this? I don't even have the capability of doing it. So it was always a source of frustration. Pandemic hit us hard, and we were all very ill-prepared, and I swore to never put myself and my students in that situation again. So I've learned a lot since then, both about how to do all the online things, how to teach kids in the room and on Zoom at the same time. I mean, we've all had similar experience. Well, that's not necessarily true, but many educators have had all of those experiences that I feel like makes us, on the one hand, feel that we can do anything. If we could do that, then we can do anything. But then on the other hand, it's defeating because this year it's just kind of, we've been through it, and yet now we're supposed to be back to this normal thing, which is not normal, and the expectations are high, and we're worn out. So I think overall, what I've learned is to treat myself with grace. Still working on that one. To treat myself with grace, to treat my students with grace, because I don't know their experience. I don't know what's happening at home. And so I think, like all things in education, kids first, content second. And I think that's the crux of it. Whether you're teaching blended, online, in person, all of the things. The more we can personalize instruction as far, not just academically, but make students feel heard, that their voice in their own education and their own lives is valid and should be the leading component in how their education moves forward. So I think we've learned lots of tools. I think education should change for the better after this. I think there's a lot of hesitancy because not everything went perfectly, obviously. But I think the education will be better for this. I know I'm better for it because I have more tools to help kids and more ways to individualize instruction. So those are all really good things. But having lost my dad to this and still dealing with some of my life is different because of COVID. And so I think SEL takes a forefront. It should take a forefront. It should be paramount. Because one thing I've learned during this whole thing is that that we have to take care of kids' mental health. And the stigma has got to go away. Anxiety, depression, whatever kids may be dealing with, they need to know that it's okay, and that that there are resources for them. They don't have to be alone. Same thing for teachers, actually. And all of the talk about self-care sometimes feels like it's just talk, because there's nothing done to really back it up and give teachers the resources or the time to do those things. And I often wonder if kids feel the same way. If it's like, oh yeah, you take care of yourself, mental health's important, and here are all these other things I need for you to do, and here are the deadlines, and kind of disappointed in your performance on this last thing. And I mean, they feel they're people, and we're people. And so grace is, I guess, the biggest thing that I've learned, to treat people with respect. Sometimes that means inconvenience for yourself, just because you don't know what they've been through. And so you go out of your way to build the community post-pandemic, let's hope it's post-pandemic, so that people can feel comfortable in your classroom physically. Whether that means, they get a little bit of space and you change the way that you do things in your classroom, or you change your partnering situations. Maybe you don't go on quintiles as much as you go on, does that person wear a mask? And will the other person feel comfortable being in close proximity with them? So there are just new concerns. And for me, kids and how they're doing throughout this is the most important thing. The content will get there. Will get there. They'll get caught up. I'm not worried about the content nearly as much as I am the overall effect of this on kids' well-being. And whether or not they know how imagery is used in a story is way down the list for me. So I guess those are the things that I've learned.